Hey everybody, John Huber here, Maryland K-12. I want to talk a little bit more about this Charlie Kirk thing. Unfortunately, I hate to keep beating on this, but the bottom line is there's the pendulum swinging back and forth. It's kind of important to understand what's going on after the killing of Charlie Kirk. There was a big wave of people demanding that teachers, in particular, be fired because of their social media posts. And some of them I thought absolutely deserved to be fired. There was you may have seen the viral video of the teacher, mocking the gunshot and all this. That lady was an elementary school teacher. And it's like, do you want your kid in elementary school in a classroom with a teacher like that? I know I certainly don't. And there were a handful of other comments that probably were not well thought out, let's just say, before they posted them on there. And school systems are well within their right to take action because most of them have clauses in their employment agreements that say things like the Board of Education has no concern over your private lives or your political. You're free to express yourself politically however you want, unless it affects your ability to do the job. I think that things like that clearly show their ability to do the job has been compromised. But some of them, are kind of borderline. And there was this big wave of conservative voice demanding that these people be removed from their job and whatnot. And many of them were. But see, now what's happening is we're seeing the second way, the pendulum swinging the other way, and all the lawsuits are starting to come in about people saying that they were unlawfully terminated. They're claiming First Amendment rights. First Amendment. I don't think, in my purely unprofessional and not educated. I would say that I'm pretty educated on this, but my opinion, certainly no legal opinion, is I don't believe that the First Amendment argument on the teachers has any merit. And here's why. That teacher who's doing this, she can do that all she wants. She's not being arrested. She's not being charged. The guy in Maryland who said something like "one Nazi down," I think was one of his comments, and there were a bunch of similar really nasty comments. They're not being prosecuted. They're not being put in jail or anything like that, but they're being fired. So then what's happening is a lot of them are based on the 14th Amendment, which has to do with equal protection under the law. And it has been determined through decades and decades of case law that teachers' jobs is the job a teacher has is basically what they call a property right. It's they get paid and it supports them. It's how they make their living, and they have a property right to that job. And the government can't just take that away without due cause or without due process. So if they're saying the school system just happened to see this online, instantly fired them, that might be a due process violation depending on how their agreements are written. But the other thing is, some schools are saying, well, they allowed all this pro Charlie Kirk stuff. They celebrated his birthday. They were doing all sorts of things to celebrate him, and they had their posters and their thing. And they're saying, well, you're celebrating this, but somebody says, one teacher said something like that she didn't like Charlie Kirk, and was a real problem. I had a couple of quotes here. I forgot, but one teacher said, I thought Charlie Kirk was a terrible person. He was filled with hate, and et cetera, and the world is safer without him. I don't necessarily agree with that, but is that a statement worthy of being fired for? Some think it is, some think it isn't. But then when you have other people in the school system who are championing what Charlie Kirk had to say, and they're being celebrated, now there's what some would say is an unfair advantage to one side or the other, and it creates a little bit of an issue. Then you get into the property rights, the 14th Amendment. They saw my post, they just fired me, they didn't talk to me, they're letting other people say things of the opposite nature. So it gets a little fuzzy. So I'm interested to see it. So it gets a little complicated, but I firmly believe that these school systems are well within their right to fire people for these types of comments. Because I will tell you this, one thing I've learned, these types of situations are about local standards. It's about local community standards. If someone who was in a far left-leaning community, very liberal, and makes comments of that nature, the community might say, "Hey, this is fine for us. We like it." The same thing might hold true on the opposite side. If someone's in Texas or Florida, they're making some far right comments, they might say, "Hey, that's fine with us." It all depends on the local community standards and whether and how those agreements are written, and whether or not the school system believes that this will affect them doing their job. So there's a little more to it. I don't think it's a First Amendment issue for my, with my unprofessional, as far as law goes, opinion goes. Anyway, I hope that helps, and I'll keep an eye on it. And but like I said, right now we're seeing the kind of the second wave of all these people who were fired. They're not just going to go away quietly. They're going to start filing lawsuits based on property right, First Amendment, which I don't think is going to get much traction. But the 14th Amendment and the due process might have something to say about that. So we'll wait and see. I'll keep an eye on it. Thanks. Have a great day.